So whether you love or hate gaming subscription services, there is no denying that they are becoming more and more prevalent in 2022 and as we look forward into the future, as services like Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack have now been available for nearly a year. In October on the 25th, it will actually be 1 year, and while I had many gripes with this service at its original launch due to things like emulation issues, those have since been addressed and updated to what I would consider to be an acceptable standard, and I definitely am enjoying having this service now as the library of games continues to grow and develop. And in today's video, we have to break down the brand new announcement that Nintendo just confirmed for the service that will be hitting on October 13th and discuss where we are going from here with Nintendo 64 games and Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack in the future. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, today we are talking all things Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack, the brand new N64 game that was just confirmed for the service, in addition to where we're headed from here, because we will start to talk about things like new systems being added in that I do think will be due in 2023, probably not till later into the year. But the reason that this is in the news today is due to the following tweet that was sent out from Nintendo of America's Twitter late last night, where it reads, "Pilot vehicles, master challenges, and take in breathtaking sights in Pilotwings 64 coming to Nintendo Switch for Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack members on 10/13. Now, first off, you gotta love the style of the trailer itself. If you go in and listen to it, it is one of the funnier trailers that Nintendo has put out for NSO, in my opinion. And Pilotwings is a big fan classic, and honestly one that I am personally hyped to play more of, because I have very vague memories of playing it at a friend's house. I never owned it myself, and I never put serious amounts of time or effort into this game, but I know fans who grew up with it love it, and it's just one additional title that we can throw into the library of N64 games that continues to build. Now, there is an interesting talking point around how Nintendo is structuring the rest of this year and then into 2023 with future updated games going forward, because we now know, according to the slide that we saw at the September Nintendo Direct, where it broke down and confirmed that Mario Party 1 and 2 and Pilotwings would all be 2022 titles. And if we get one N64 game per month like we have been so far, although September was an interesting exception to that rule, where Nintendo just decided to skip up that month altogether. And since they've started adding games to the service back with, I believe it was Paper Mario, if I'm not mistaken, whichever the first game was, essentially since it started to add new games to the service, they stuck to exactly one new game per calendar month without fail. September is the exception to that rule, but we do at least know that the rest of 2022 will see Mario Party 1. I'm assuming they'll release them in numerical order. So let's say Mario Party 1, we can now safely assume is going to be the November game, and Mario Party 2 will then be the December game, finishing out the roadmap for the rest of this year. And what I will have my eyes on and be paying attention to very closely is what 2023's release schedule looks like, because we have Mario Party 3, Pokemon Stadium 1, Pokemon Stadium 2, 1080 Snowboarding, and Excite Bike 64 that we all know to be confirmed, in addition to GoldenEye. And to quickly answer the question on whether or not GoldenEye may come out this year, I believe that's a solid no at this point. The Japanese Nintendo Direct trailer did have 2023 as the year for GoldenEye. Why would they release it in 2023 in Japan but release it sooner over here? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Not to mention, it would be a bonus N64 game in their current roadmap, because as I mentioned, we already have November and December's game figured out, being the Mario Party titles, and I don't see Nintendo doing that either. Why they didn't just say 2023 in our Nintendo Direct and it said coming soon instead, I don't know. I'm definitely ready to play through GoldenEye, and that's the big hype title for me, but we do have to pay attention to where that takes us, because if Nintendo does indeed stick to one new game per month, that will lead us right into June, which is of course the return of E3, as it is officially confirmed that ReedPop is running the event, and it will be back in full force with an in-person as well as the online portion of the event intact? And does Nintendo just continue to drop one new N64 game per calendar month all the way through until that June time E3 Nintendo Direct that I am heavily expecting to make a full return in 2023? And that's where we get the next updated roadmap? Or do they just stop updating the roadmap at this point and we actually don't always consistently see one new N64 game per month added in? Because if you look at history with the other consoles being the NES and SNES games, we did see support for them start to dwindle down as you used to get a monthly games update trailer, and then all of a sudden that turned into once every other month or once every quarter, and eventually at one point in time we waited 6 months in between updates. So we see Nintendo kind of dwindle down support with the big selling point console as it matures and as it sits on the service longer, and when they really start to run out of things, that is when we normally see them ramp back up the excitement by announcing a brand new console. And whether or not that happens at something like E3 with the Game Boy family of systems that we already know there are emulators working and that were developed from Nerd, which is the Nintendo of Europe research and development branch, like that system is coming. Those systems are coming for sure. One way or another we will ultimately get them, but it depends on how Nintendo views the service and how much strength they need to have in that particular time frame on when they choose to release those emulators. And I could definitely see it being something like the September 2023 Nintendo Direct, as that's historically always been the event that we've gotten the announcement for new consoles and new features on the service, as that's just the logical time to reveal things because the service launched in September, so everybody's annual subscription comes up in September, which means you want to give people a reason to re-sign up for the annual subscription, which is obviously what Nintendo leads with on this thing, and it's a big revenue driver for them. So get the fans bought back in and excited, because honestly, once we run through the rest of this existing Nintendo 64 games roadmap, and then let's hope that we get the big games that we want to see added into the service, like Super Smash Bros, like Donkey Kong 64, like Diddy Kong Racing, maybe if we're extremely lucky, Conker's Bad Fur Day. I think Banjo-Tooie is a solid shoe-in that we see make it over. There are many other N64 classics, but it does honestly run into potentially licensing issues with a lot of them at that point. And how many more titles will we ultimately see Nintendo bring over? I tend to believe that previous data leak that hit that shows 38 total games is what will be slated for the service. And I think that we ultimately probably see Nintendo drag that out in a very drip feed way as we finish out the 2023 roadmap of games. And I can see them slowing down to something like one N64 game every other month or even every quarter eventually, when we are getting more of a consistent monthly schedule for whatever the next system is that will be added in. Not to mention, if we do go with Game Boy family of systems, we could in theory have Game Boy Advance getting one new game per month after the initial library of its games are launched, and then you still have Game Boy and Game Boy Color that you could kind of do the NES/SNES update play with, where you can do that every quarter, every other month, but you're gonna get some kind of new Game Boy experience. And I am hopeful that Nintendo, when they do reveal that family of systems, will throw those onto the base tier of the service, because I definitely think you can argue that even though it's only a $20 annual price, there is not much you are getting in terms of new content and updates other than just access to cloud storage and the ability to play online. And I think that the service looks a lot better if it has an ongoing roadmap of updated games as well. Not to mention, we still have plenty of missing NES and SNES games that could be brought over if Nintendo chooses to write the checks for them. And then how long do they go with this traditional formula of adding in new games and consoles before we figure out what's next? Because I think 2023 could be the year for a more powerful Switch, or maybe even the reveal of what's next for Nintendo. They typically don't go more than 5 to 6 years. Granted, the Switch is in a little bit of a different scenario with how well it's selling before refreshing the console. So is NSO what is the future of Nintendo, and do they turn it into their mega Disney Plus level? Here's all of our classic IPs, streaming type service, not streaming in the cloud sense, but you know, as far as having that library of games that you boot up, do they go that route and really make it robust and continue to roll this forward for generations to come? Or is NSO plus expansion pack only something that's supported for this current generation of Switch and nothing really rolls forward for the next console? I definitely hope we just keep building on what we have and we bring it forward, and ultimately we're talking about things all the way up to GameCube and Wii one day on the classic library of games as part of NSO. And as long as the price doesn't go up too much at that point, I will still be a happy subscriber, because like I said, as I am a fan of Virtual Console, it's also something that, yeah, I bought that game, I can have access to play it whenever I want, and it's fully mine, but those servers still get shut down, and if anything happens to your save data, you won't always be able to re-download that. Not to mention you have to go through the hassle of hooking up an old console, and I might not buy every virtual console game that came out as it came out, but when I am an ongoing paying subscriber, all the games are going to be added into the account regardless. So that's kind of a fun thing for me to boot up and be able to play through games that I didn't get to spend as much time on, like Pilotwings 64, that I will definitely be checking out on October 13th. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video on everything we talked about today. What do you think about the state of NSO where it's at right now? Are you happy with the course that Nintendo is on for the service? Do you think it needs a revamp or overhaul? And how do you think we see the rest of the updated roadmap schedule finish out? And also share with me whether or not you are looking forward to Pilotwings 64 and if you will be checking it out and booting it up when it does drop later this month on October 13th. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.